Okay, guys, we are live. So, welcome everybody to those who are streaming online right now. Welcome to what we call this special axe sharpening session. So, this is probably the first of the live session that I'm actually planning to do out. So, in case for those of you who are tuning in and saying, wow, Jesse, this is the first time you're doing live, what's this all about? So, this is axe sharpening. This axe sharpening session was actually first introduced back to me when I was with Alpha Malaysia, the team in Alpha Malaysia. When I joined them in 2016 as an intern. Now it was conducted weekly during our Tuesday morning meeting, team meetings. And this was something that I found really profound, that it helps us in growing and building our team culture. And this was something that really, I would say, had inspired me, had left a mark in my life. And I think to those who were around, especially those who are tuning in live, those Alpha Malaysia team, to my ex-colleagues, hello, hope you all are doing well as well. So this was actually brought in by none other than my former mentor and leader at that time, and his name is Abel Chia. So I have to give a shout out to Abel for bringing this, axe sharpening to the team, and still have this session being run up until today. So the session has left a tremendous impact in how we operate as a team and in creating a healthy work culture. Until today, even though I'm working elsewhere, I still reflect upon this session. Hence, I started taking the opportunity to run this with a group of my friends, with the blessing of Abel, of course. And so, what is this session that has left an impact to me? So some of y'all might want to know, what is this axe sharpening session? So the axe sharpening session is basically a session where we gather together, we take time to reflect upon certain things that we need to do. For example, when we're at workplace, sometimes we work too hard, we strive for certain things in life. We try to get things done, but if we don't sharpen our axe, we won't be very efficient at the things we do. For example, if I continue to work, without having some me time or rest, I won't be able to get the things done in a more efficient way. And how this axe sharpening story came about is through the story of a woodcutter. And what he did was, this is a story of a woodcutter. He asked for a job from a timber merchant and he got it. The pay was good, and so were the work conditions. And for that reason, the woodcutter was determined to do his very best. His boss gave him an axe and showed him the area in the forest where he was to work, right? And the first day, the woodcutter managed to cut down 18 trees, and of course the boss was extremely impressed, and he said, well done. And motivated by the words, the woodcutter tried even harder the next day, but he only cut down 15 trees. And so he kept on trying. On the third day, he kept on trying even harder, but he started cutting less. Day after day, the woodcutter cut down fewer and fewer trees. And his boss came to him and told him that if he did not chop down more trees each day, he would lose his job. The woodcutter needed a job, so he tried harder and harder. So what actually happened was, eventually at the end, his boss came to him and told him, the woodcutter, he was fired. The woodcutter was extremely upset, but he knew that he had worked as hard as he could and just did not have enough time to chop more trees. He sadly handed his axe back The boss took one look at the axe and asked, "When was the last time you sharpened your axe?" The woodcutter replied, "Sharpen my axe? I have never sharpened my axe. I have been too busy trying to cut down enough trees." And so what this story is trying to tell us, or what the moral of this story is all about, is sometimes we need to take time to sharpen our axe. And the reason being that is because, as similar to the story of the woodcutter, we may continue doing our job, continue, trying to finish our race, trying to finish what we need to do. But if we don't take time to, hey, I need to reflect, I need to go through my work again, and maybe I can adjust all of this, then I can be more efficient at my work. And that's the story of the axe sharpening. The guy who never sharpened his axe would, at the end of the story, he wasn't efficient at what he's doing. So the idea of having, so that's the story. So that's the story of how the axe sharpening session came about. And with that said, when I brought this, when I had the blessing to run this axe sharpening session, I thought not just, take from, not just, get a blessing from someone and you just continue to run it the same way. No, I thought of, when we take something, we make it even better. We try and improve on what it is, because we want to do better, or we want to do better than what, or than just, following the standards, right? And so the idea for me was to have, the idea of having special guest speakers on board was to sort of expand the group's learning. And how do we expand our learning? See, when we are with familiar people, our growth will be, you will experience growth, that's for sure. But I think the difference is when we learn from someone else, you will start to see the impact grow even more than just among the circle of friends. And that's why I believe having special guest speakers on board would definitely help our group to grow in this session. And hopefully through those who are watching this live session, I hope you guys will take something away from this story, from our special guest speaker today. And so by having a guest speaker to come and share, they will also give us another perspective of how we see life and how we deal with challenges as well. So today, this Merdeka Day, what is more fitting for today's celebration? My first guest speaker for the session is Divyang Hong. So I'd like to welcome Div. And Div, thank you for coming on board to share, to come on board and share part of your story for this session. So for those of you, again, for those of you who are tuning in or just tuning in, do forgive me, this is my first live session that I'm doing, so I may, I may stutter a bit because I'm not used to this, but sometimes this is something that I want to do as part of our team's growth, or this axe sharpening session that I want to do with my whole group that I'm running it. So for those of you again who are tuning in live on Facebook, today our special guest speaker is none other than Divyang Hong. And Divyang Hong is a fellow at TFM, a curator of Kopitiam Poetry, an EP writer and producer, and is also serving in the HTBB worship team. So welcome, Div. Thanks for coming on board. How's your week been? How's everything, man? How's things going?
Hey Jesse, yeah, thanks for having me on, man. It's a real pleasure to be on here. And I mean, I can't tell it's like your first time doing it because you're doing such a great job already. My week has been very good. Just yesterday I had a full day at church. I'm glad today's a public holiday though, so got some much needed rest. But yeah, it's been a very fruitful and productive week.
Yeah, I did see some of the stuff that you guys have been doing, and just tremendous, man. What you've been doing, HTBB has been doing. I have to shout out to those guys who are serving. I mean, I've served with them, and what you guys have been doing is just plainly amazing. And firstly, really warm welcome and thank you for coming on board. And I thought, of running this session today by having you as a special guest speaker for the first session is because it's also in conjunction with what else? Merdeka Day, right? And it's also in a way also to celebrate, those people who've, uh, inspire as well, inspirational story. And what more I could say more of somebody to kickstart off the live session, none other than you, man. Because I think uh, when I look at the list or guest speaker that I was planning out to have on board, it was not really easy to think of who to kickstart off. There's so many, but I think, when I got to know you, I think it was very interesting. How I first met you was I think it was through Jesse Sharma. Jesse Sharma, if you're tuning in live, I think we've met him only earlier this year through running the Alpha session, serving on the team. And that's where I met you through Jesse Sharma. And we started having a bit of conversation. And then I started picking up a few things that, whoa, you've been doing all this. And what more for today's session, I start thinking, who can I get, when I started planning this out. And I said, hey, Divyang Hong is a fellow at Teach from Malaysia and a curator, and I saw your stuff. Sorry, bro, it's not stalking, but but I thought I saw your profile. I was like, whoa, that's just amazing, man. That's just amazing. So yeah, that's what brought you up on my mind first to be our first speaker for this session.
Yeah, thanks, man. You're too kind. And I do remember the first time I met you was with Jesse Sharma. I think we were having a conversation and I realized that both of you shared the same name. I think you were serving an Alpha Mandarin and then I was serving an Alpha English at the time. I think what drew us together, I think we were talking about football. I think it was like in the middle of the Premier League season. We were talking about Liverpool's chances of winning the league, which they eventually did. Yeah. So that was cool. But you're too kind, man. I mean, like honestly, like all the stuff that I do, I do enjoy doing them, and I'm really privileged to be here today. And thanks for calling me up. It's a massive pleasure and a privilege to be here.
Thanks, man. Really appreciate. And I think when I started playing, and so for those like my friends who are tuning in here right now, the music or those who just came in, the music that I just played for intro, that was actually all done and written by Divyang Hong. Okay, so we'll have that little play in a while, but I like to, firstly, again, those tuning in, would like to just say happy National Day to all of us. We celebrate our number 63, if I'm not wrong, our Independence Day, 63rd Independence Day. So yeah, and thank you all for tuning in and coming in for our session and making time for this. And really also again, Dave, thank you for coming and spending your off day to be with us. So today, again, we're going to talk who's life story a bit with Divyang Hong. I found, his story to be quite incredible to read up all of it. But as all of you guys who are tuning in, and for those of my friends in this Zoom online, as much as I know Div, I'm also like you guys. I don't really, we've only just met once, but I found out a lot of things. And I thought this is also a good chance for all of us to learn and grow together as a team and perhaps, get the ball rolling and get started with asking Div, some of the questions that could inspire us as a team to grow in our axe-sharpening session. So I think over the couple of weeks, we've learned a few things like the law of growth, how to give and receive feedback. And just last week, we learned about how to listen. So without further ado, Div, we're going to go into our session. Give me 1 second. We have a bit of background noise. I do apologize for that. We do have background noise. Sorry, guys. That was just we're doing this in my room, and someone needed to come in to take some stuff. So apologize for that interruption. But yeah, without further ado, Div, we're gonna get ask you a couple of questions, and this is something that some of us, my group and friends were like, "Whoa, this guy's doing so many stuff! Like he wrote his own music." I say, "Yeah, I'm even just amazed by that." So without further ado, just a quick kind of questions I'm going to run through, and for all of you, the question will be shown on these slides that I just prepared. So for Div, I think the first question was, what inspired you to be a fellow at TFN, and was it something you really wanted to be when you were growing up?
Oh yeah, thanks for the question, man. What inspired me to be a fellow at TFM, and was it something I wanted to go? I think my idea about what education inequity was like was that I was part of the drama team and the debate team when I was in like Form 4 and Form 5. So back then I was part of this. I think I come from Kedah, so like this school in Kedah was pretty big back then. It was like a cluster school, and we used to do quite well in debate and drama. So when I signed up to be part of the team, I noticed that like when we came to like districts and states, we were expected to win in a certain way, and so I think there was a massive privilege to just be able to be part of that setup, where the winning mentality was sort of already inculcated within the school context itself. So I think when I left school, I always wondered whether or not, like, see, if I had the same ability or I had the same set of skills, but if I was in a less privileged school, like, what would have happened to me in my future? Because I think the experience I had in debate and drama during that time really helped me get to where I need to go in college and university. So I always wondered, like, what if I wasn't in that setup or in a school that was privileged enough to have that setup? Would it have been very different? Like, would I have not done the things that I did? Would I have not learned about the things that I knew about at the time? And so I think, I still went ahead and did engineering first. So I majored in electrical and electronics engineering. So teaching, I came from a family of teachers. So both my parents were teachers. So I think I saw a lot of stories growing up. I was not very encouraged by what I saw at the time. So, but I still went ahead and did engineering. I worked as an engineer for a year, but I still had that feeling that I could be doing more with my life right now, to create impact within the society while I'm young. And so that's when I first heard about Teach for Malaysia, and I went on their website. I looked at what they were doing. I saw the impact they were making at underprivileged schools and communities, and I thought, like, hey, let me act upon that thought I had back then. Like, how do I bring whatever I've learned, and let's see if it works within an underprivileged community. Will I be able to get access to kids who are just as talented than the rest of the elite schools, and see where that takes them, right? So I think right after that, I applied in 2018, and towards the end of the year, we had a 2-month training course, and then at the start of 2019, it was my first year as a fellow. 2020 is the second year of my contract. So yeah, and I think like within that entire time span, I noticed that, like, the idea that, like, like the elite schools get access to the best kids it actually isn't true. Actually, like, you can find very talented, very capable kids all across the board, but it's just the lack of access to opportunities that is the problem in this community. So, like, I think it's a self-doubt that sort of like is embedded within their school structure and in the infrastructure itself. So, like, I noticed that I went ahead and I started this whole debate initiative called SPLAT, which is short for Speakers Platform. So we provided debate training for underprivileged students who had interest in debating, and we noticed that we produced like some really capable speakers. But it wasn't okay. I mean, like, there definitely was an effect based on the curriculum, but we noticed that some of these kids were better than like the most of the kids I debated against in elite schools or in nationals. Like, these kids already were naturally very adept at debating. It's just that before the opportunity was made available to them, like, these people like had no access, and therefore they could not showcase their talents. And so I think looking back, I really have no regrets signing up for Teach for Malaysia, and looking at how the kids have benefited from the programs that we have run. It gives me great heart, and I think, like, it also proves to the fact, like, it really comes down to whether or not these opportunities are made available to these kids. And it's been a massive privilege to be a part of the process, and looking at them grow at the same time. And my only hope is that it will continue to a certain extent, even after the fellowship is over, like I hope that these kids like still like act upon the stuff that they've learned, and I keep the ball rolling in the sense like you want to build a self-sustaining community as well. I think that's the idea. But yeah, that basically is why I signed up.
Wow, that's incredible, man. And I think you talk about community. Do you see it as in what? Do you see there is over the years you join? I'm sure you've seen like improvement has gone, but I'm pretty sure there's much more that we can do. Is that correct? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I think what I've seen is like, okay, so a group of students, maybe about 10 to 15 of them are part of that program at first. They automatically so that happened in 2019. And in 2020, all of them just naturally took up leadership positions in school. They just gave them, and it wasn't debating or like not just the command of the language, but like, leadership capability and leadership development was a big thing within the school. So you created leaders through opportunities like this. There definitely is a lot more to be done. And I think the 2020 is a little bit frustrating for me because we had a lot of stuff lined up as well. But because of the MCO, we had to reroute a lot of those opportunities and go online, which is a different set of challenges that creates different results. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot more to be done, especially like, I mean, I'm working in one school that's in Setapak, like, and there are like so many different schools all across Malaysia that just need people to be aware of, like, a little bit goes a long way with these communities. You just give one kid the opportunity to shine outside of their kampong, so to speak. And you see how that transforms the mentality of the entire school. So yeah.
Okay, yeah, wow, that's yeah, I do agree because I kind of heard some of the things that my other friends so they are actually two of them actually for those they might be tuning in live, two of them actually I went to Cambodia with, and they're still doing this community stuff, and we'll touch on that when I'll touch on that topic for those tuning in. I will touch on that topic when we come into our volunteerism topic. It's that will be on October 12th. But I've worked with these two guys. I've been in connection with them. Been in contact with them. Sorry, not connection. I've been in contact with them, and they've also talked about last week, or I think a couple of weeks ago, they've been going to a couple of the rural schools, and I think they went out and get a couple of computers from Zurich. They got all these old computers, and they're just trying to go into these rural schools and provide them with the necessary thing for them to learn, to go on as you said, go online, because due to the pandemic, some of the situations that you guys as teachers, I think I do have a fellow teacher joining us as well in our group, and so they've been going out and trying to reach out to these community people. And last 2 weeks they were in Langkawi, going around and to go and help the communities around there, especially the school area. So yeah, that's really really interesting. And I think my other question was, Dev, this is going to be quite funny, whether it's funny or not, I don't know. But was it, sorry Abel, was it you, or did you met Abel then, or do you meet Abel during HTBB, or you knew Abel back then?
Oh, so like I only knew Abel once I came to it. My first year in the fellowship was also the first year I started attending HTBB. And so I realized so I knew Sun Sing from before that. So like Sun Sing was already part of the program, yeah. But Abel I met at church, and then I found out that he was part of the first ever PFM cohort. And I thought it was interesting. I mean like they went through, they had like, even in our ranks, they were the heroes, because like they were the ones who went in without any context. They got the ball rolling for all of us. So they saw everything from the start. They basically built the program to be what it is today. And yeah. I think massive inspiration, like just like you, I think massive inspiration from people like Abel as well, because like it's not just like the experience that they have and the perspective that he has, like it just adds so much value to a lot of things that we speak about. So yeah, that's how I met Abel.
I mean, just by how you were just talking about this Teach for Malaysia, basically, it's like for some people, that's like for us, wow, that's already inspirational. That's like, wow, being a teacher. But you're not just only doing that. I think back also in your portfolio, in your life story, which I found it really interesting, and I will say it again because it's just incredible, is that you've came out with your own EP, right? So you wrote and produced your own EP, which, guys, for those of you tuning in, you can check it out on Spotify. And if you want to know how it looks like, this is his two albums. I wouldn't say it's not technically an album, right? Or is it an album, Deep, or is it just more a single?
It's an EP, so basically it's like an extended play, which is basically like an album of like 3 or 6 songs maximum. I had 3 that one, and that was a single in 2018.
Yeah. So uh Dave came out with two, this is, you can check it out on Spotify, you can find it here, and you can just search on Spotify, Divyang Hong, and so my question to you, is tell us the story behind it. How do you come up with this? Because you did mention that you were 2017 or 2018 you went into TFM, right? Was that correct? I'm not too sure. When was
Yeah,
it?
so I joined TFM in late 2018.
Yeah.
But like with regards to the EP or like the music that I wrote and produced, so basically I've always been playing the guitar, and I think it was in university when I start like toying with the idea of writing my own songs. I think basically as an avenue for creative expression. So I think I've always in one way or another sought to be authentic in the way I express myself. So I think music was one of those ways. So I used to like express myself through the guitar. I thought like, hey, maybe I could try songwriting and putting words into it. So I think that's when I started playing with the idea of like using words in lyrics, in melody. I think basically my idea was trying to express myself, because I think when I was doing engineering in university, I also felt a bit like misplaced. I did enjoy the course to a certain extent, but I also felt it didn't fully represent me at the time. So that's why when I use music as this avenue to channel whatever I was feeling at the time, about people, about relationships, about just basically the life I was going through. So 2017 was the year I graduated, and the moment I graduated, I was like, okay, you know what? I think I'm just gonna try it anyway. I'm gonna try and like write songs, like full arrangements, get my own audio interface, record it, mix it myself, and produce it myself, and see whether. I mean, it was a fun experiment for me, and I'm just really glad people enjoy what I do. But for me, it was like, yeah, I really wanted people to be able to share the joy that I had writing music. So that was in 2017. I graduated. So it was between graduating and starting my engineering job. And that's where I felt like I wanted to be productive at the time. So I just got my head down, finished writing 3 songs, and just recorded. I learned a lot in the process. It's something that I enjoyed doing, because I enjoyed learning about a lot of things that I wasn't naturally adept at doing at the time. But it was a really fun experience.
Wow. Just and when you said you graduated 2017, I think, guys, you roughly know his age already, man, and that tells you a lot, like what he's done so far. Like Teach for Malaysia, fellow TFF, a fellow at Teach for Malaysia, already came out two singles, right, and 6 stuff. Like, it's not easy to even write a song, and let alone for those of you earlier who joined in, you heard the song already. Most of my group already just found it really nice, really just, and I found it really, really, really like, oh, it's just perfect. It's like, it's a very soothing, calming kind of song, and speaking of that, right, I think, when you graduated and you said, and in between then, the challenges, right? I think this is something for all of us to grow. And I think in between that, before I dive into that challenges part, I think the other question we're going to ask is that you're also a curator for Kopitiam Poetry. So how did that come about, and what is it actually?
Thanks. I mean, I appreciate the feedback for the EP. Then, and I'm really happy that you guys like it. But Kopitiam Poetry, interesting story. So basically, when I joined TFM, so that's basically the Instagram page for it and what we do there. So but I think okay, so poetry, writing poetry was something I started doing seriously after maybe in 2018, 2019, I really started getting down and started writing poetry because it's just another way of me expressing myself. So I think music was one way of expressing it, but I think I really enjoyed writing lyrics. So I started like, okay, what if I take away the music? You know, that's basically poetry, right? Just started dabbling with different forms of I started with haikus and pantums, which are two forms I really enjoy writing the most. But then also like just writing free form stuff like I did during the MCO and yeah. So and then in Teach from Malaysia, I have two very talented friends as well. Like you can see their names there. It's basically Jingy and Squared is my other friend named Jinghan. And I knew they wrote poetry as well. They were writing poetry at the time I met them, and they're also both amazing fellows at Teach for Malaysia, doing crazy stuff with their kids in KL and in Johor. So during the MCO, I said, hey, you know what? We've been writing poetry, and and then I think I used to do one poem a day and post it on my personal Instagram stories. So actually, I have to shout out to Jan here. So Janice, if you're watching, Janice is basically a friend of mine from HTBB as well. And she said like she really enjoyed the stuff and said, dude, like why don't you start talking about poetry on Instagram? Like, you know, like that would be cool. Like people could actually get, if you see like a lot of people responding to your stories, like why not like you get like you actually go on Instagram live and start talking about it and people will get something from it as well. And so I thought like, hey, okay, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, very intriguing. So I brought it up with my friends Jinghan and Jingy, and so they got on board and it's like, hey, so I remember it was a Thursday night and we got together, talk about it, and on Sunday we already had our first Instagram live session. So basically, what we do here is that we want to uh, tell everyone that poetry is actually for everyone in a way because we're basically just ordinary people just putting words together and making poetry. Uh, and we really do enjoy reading each other's poetry. So we just wanted to like create that platform where everyone could just come. And basically our tagline is come lepa and talk about how poetry doesn't always have to rhyme. Because I think the first thing people think about poetry is like, oh, dude, how? I mean, like I'm very bad at rhyming. But
Yeah.
yeah, but like I said, I think like you know, poetry is more than just rhyming. Like there's a lot of other things that go into it, and so we just wanted to just create a space where we could talk about it to people, and people could just listen in, and hopefully gain inspiration from it, and just write their own poetry because basically everyone, like everyone, you may not need to be a published poet at the end of the day, but I think everyone is capable of writing beautiful poetry, and I think during that time of like Instagram Live, we were all the viewers who sent in their two lines and their poems. Like we saw a lot of amazing stuff, and we were so happy to be able to share that space with so many people who just started writing poetry because of these live sessions. What we did really cool was in the month of May was featuring students. So we had uni students and also school students who wrote poetry themselves and came on the show to talk about their process. And I'm talking about like 16-year-olds who were writing stuff concerning abortion and child marriage. So like that was the level that we were dealing with. Like, whoa, like kids writing about serious stuff and writing beautiful poetry out of that. It just gave us a lot of inspiration as well. So yeah, that's basically what Kopitiam Poetry is about. We wanted to capture the idea of a Malaysian Kopitiam, and how like you know everyday conversations happen at the Kopitiam, and basically poetry can be the same thing. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be an intimidating like super like you know William Shakespeare kind of thing. It is for everyone, and like yeah, so that's basically our idea.
So are y'all, I went through the IGTV school, and for like those who are tuning in, are y'all just on Instagram? Are you going to go like on YouTube or anything or something like that?
I think the idea was to just keep it on Instagram because Instagram
Yeah.
is something that people like, you know, it has become such an everyday app. So we wanted it to be like a thing that people can just scroll over and like, hey, yeah, engage with, you know.
Hmm.
But we open to the possibilities depending on where like the road takes us after this. Yeah.
Nice. Wow. So guys, Kopitiam Poetry, I went through it. I found it really interesting, and I had to just bring this up because it's really interesting how y'all came up with this, like Kopitiam Poetry. Interesting. The name Kopitiam, as like you said, you go to Kopitiam, we like to have our chit chat. We just want to go and chill and talk about life and stuff. But then you put in poetry. I'm like, wow, Kopitiam Poetry. You go to Kopitiam and you talk about poetry, and that like sort of like wow. And then your tagline, poetry by the right yard, for the right yard. Come lepak and talk about how poetry doesn't always have to rhyme. That's just, that's just crazy, like how you've come up with this. I think, just a recap, right? You're a fellow at TFM, and then you wrote your own EP, and now you've with two other fellows in HTBB as well. One of them from HTBB, if I'm not correct.
No, actually, they're all from Teach from Malaysia. They're not from
From
HTBB.
Malaysia, sorry, correct. I'm wrong. Not sorry.
No,
You're wrong. Not Teach from Malaysia. Not HTBB. Teach from Malaysia. So that's just incredible. Like, you guys had the time to come up with this, and I think it's really inspiring. Leaders, as leaders, you would want. Students are looking towards leaders or teachers, right? But I think when you start this, and then your students will reflect back, hey, this is really interesting. Like, my teacher or leaders are pretty cool. They started this Kopitiam Poetry, because back in our time, maybe when I was when I did my high school. Okay, I'm gonna reveal my age, so I'm pretty old. Back, I think 10 years ago. Wait, when they were, 10 years ago or 12 years ago. Yeah, 12 years ago, I graduated from high school SPM. We don't have this kind of, like, this teacher who provide all this stuff. And so I think, with these kind of things, it will get, the students will be like, wow, I'll be really inspirational to like, this teacher is really cool. They start up with this kind of thing. I feel like I'm like, I can look forward to, they have really cool leaders, like leaders that empower them, and they look at all this, wow, my teachers actually created this kind of things, and that would also inspire them towards looking towards, how I'd say, towards aspiring for bigger goals, bigger dreams. And I think also gonna shout out to those teachers. I think this is more like appreciation to the teachers, I say, because Steve, you're a teacher, you're doing all this, but I think we also got to give credits to all the teachers who are doing a great job. I know Steve Lam is a lecturer, so that's also, I like the stuff that he put on. He just recently put on Sir, why last Sir, why Sir, but why Sir, that kind of thing. It's quite interesting. You have these kind of teachers creating a fun way for the students to like interact with the lecturers, because back then you don't have this. But I think with this Kopitiam Poetry, it's just amazing with what you guys have just done. I mean, right now, I think that's like for a teacher or for someone like you, Dev, I think that's like way beyond what I can dream of. Like, start off with 3 stuff. Fellow at TFM, you produce your own EPs, and then also a curator at Kopitiam Poetry. But last but not least, I do have to say, you're also part of the HTBB worship team, which makes it even more like amazing. And that's a lot of stuff you're doing. And when that comes to my next question is, how do you balance all this out? Like, how do you have the time for this? Like, I know you have certain challenges. I think this will I'll just add on to this question with that, is that you're already doing what you're doing is already inspiring, right? You managed to do something that is very remarkable. But I'm sure along the way you face many challenges. And how did you like, what some of the challenges that you went through? How do you manage to, like, okay, I have this hurdle ahead, but how do you manage? Yeah, how do you prepare for those challenges? Because 2017 you graduated, and then the road is ahead of you. There's so much things. Yet you came into this thing, being a fellow teacher from Malaysia, and you wrote again, produce your own song, Kopitiam Poetry, and then part of the HTBB worship team. So yeah, how do you balance this out, and how do you prepare for these challenges? I think it's good, because I think some of some of my group members here, they are working as well, and they face kind of challenges. Maybe this also can be something that be inspiring for those in the workplace, as well as those preparing from uni to start, those graduates, so both in the workplace and also for those who are graduating, how do you prepare for those challenges and how do you balance this out? Yeah.
Yo, thanks so much for that question. I really appreciate it. But like, I think, okay, so I feel like, I mean, yeah, I mean, you mentioned quite a lot of things that I do, but I think in my head, right, I think I always see myself as this very ordinary person who just like does a lot of things because I genuinely enjoy the stuff that I sign up for. And I think the only way to put it is like, yes, there definitely will be a lot of challenges, especially in regards of like time. Just your physical and mental capacity will be stretched, right? And I think, to be very honest with you, sometimes when I sign up for things, it's like I don't account for all the responsibilities that you have to sign up for. As adaptable as I may seem, there definitely will be times where you will be really, really stretched, and you have no one else to blame but yourself. I might enjoy what I do, but I think my main struggle is being able to prioritize certain things. So like so a lot of these things are passion projects as well. So you're not even talking about like real work stuff that I have to do for Teach for Malaysia and in school. So how I find the time is basically like to always remember why I'm doing what I'm doing. So and to also measure the impact like of what I do. So like with everything, okay, for the EP was definitely for like my own self, right? So like self-expression, I wanted it to be there. But like Teach for Malaysia is definitely everything I do is definitely geared towards the kids, right? So like and there's a lot of stuff that happens in schools, like every cliche you've heard about how difficult the education system is, like all of it is true and more, guys. So like if you a massive shout out to all the teachers that I grew up with, because even though like we went through the normal school system, and I remember like being unhappy with a lot of things that my teachers would think, but only now I realized that actually they had to go through a lot of things just to be able to deliver a lesson to us in class. So and then like for Kopitiam Poetry and for HTB Worship, I think it's just basically part of my person to want to be able to. I mean, I love serving in church. I love the community that I have in church. And with Kopitiam Poetry is definitely because, and I think all the common factor that ties all of these together is I have a massive support system that comes with all of these things, right? So with the TFM support system, my friends who are in it, like for example, like the ones I work with, Kopitiam Poetry, and all the other projects that I work in, I have really solid team members that to get me through and to speak like directly to me, to keep me accountable for the things that I do, and always being very gracious when I sometimes don't live up to what I'm supposed to do. And of course the HTBB community, like the community I met there gets me through a lot of my personal challenges as well as the challenges I face with regards to work, right? So I think if I could summarize it, how I would prepare for those challenges, like to always remember the reason why I am doing it, and to really measure the impact that I'm going for here, and really that's the only thing that drives you forward. And also to be surrounded by people that support you in what you do, and who can offer you perspective whenever you hit a snag, or like you're faced with a difficult time. You really need solid people in your community to be in your corner, because like a lot of these things, as much as it seems like a personal an individual is doing a lot of these things, but actually I'm really supported by all the other team players that I have that makes it easier for me to do what I do as well. So yeah, definitely a lot of credit goes to the people around me, man. Like I think honestly, like for me, like I really am just an ordinary guy who likes doing a lot of these things and then thinking about them later on. What I'm really privileged and really thankful of is like all the people that are around me to support me, and to do their part as well and do it excellently, and it makes me so much more efficient at what I do because of them. But yeah.
Nice. I do have, with that, I actually do have a personal question, right? This is for me, and it's not in here, but I think it got me thinking, because I think last week I watched a message on Run Your Race, and I think you've watched that as well by Craig Rochelle. Now, I think when we dive into that kind of thing, it got me thinking about, as a teacher, and then you have all these kids, you're teaching all these kids, right? Yeah, you are. I would say teaching. You're mentoring them. I think it's the right word. Teach, but you
Yeah.
mentor them. I think the
Yeah,
proper
yeah.
word is using mentor, because I I think teach is like, it's okay, but I think mentor is the proper word. I would, to me, I look at it, because sometimes when you lead people, it's also how we frame the thing, it's what we say as well. I believe is the way we how we tell people is very important as well. So I would say mentor. So for me, it's about, talking about run your races. When you mentor these kids in your school, they tend, in school, there's always students, they will have all these comparisons, right? And speaking about running your race, we just heard. How do you deal with those students? They start comparing, like they feel down and up, because comparison is everywhere. I think even in the workplace, we will also deal with, oh, that person is better than me. But for you, because you're a teacher or mentor, you are dealing with these young ones. Do you ever encounter these kind of things where the students start, so why is he doing better than me and all this? And I'm sure you've encountered that. I'm pretty sure most teacher has. But what goes through your mind when you deal with them? How do you coach them, or what do you say to them? Because I think this also could apply to us in the workplace. It doesn't matter whether you're in school or what, but I believe it's really important to hear what you have to say, or your perspective on this. Yeah.
Well, that's a great question, Jesse. And yes, I do agree with you that like that message by Craig Rochelle about running a race is such an important reminder for like, people, regardless of where they are or what age they're at, because I think that it really applies to a lot of people, including myself. In regards of what happens in Teach for Malaysia, and you are spot on in the word, because I see myself as more as a mentor as well, and not just a teacher, right? Because there's a lot of things that you bring into their life that comes from outside of the classroom as well. So like I think for one example which I saw very clearly was when I was doing a debate thing, right? So we had to pick team members, and that's always a difficult thing to do for a teacher, because you love all of your kids and you know that all of them are great, but when it comes down to picking a team, sometimes it's about thinking about the entire team and being fair to every kid that's there. And so I had to make tough calls in like which members I had to pick for the team at the time. And I think the idea was, how do I communicate that to them? I remember like a lot of kids broke down crying because they felt like they weren't good enough, and like they were asking me like, sir, am I not better than this other person who is actually their close friend? So it was a lot of tension within the group. Because it sort of felt like you were pitting friends against each other and making them compare each other. But at the end of the day, I just told them like, hey, like I said, this is just one competition. It doesn't really signify your value or your importance to the team, and even beyond this, right? I say like what your purpose is, yes, what you get from this is how effective you're going to be from after this. Always reminding your kids of their real identity. It doesn't hinge on like incidents or events, right? It's much bigger than that. So always pointing them towards who they really are deep inside and what their value actually is, and no one can take that away from them. It's really important to really give them a firm footing of who they really are, because they're at the age of discovery as well. Like they don't really know much about themselves, and so it's teaching them to really value themselves above the stuff. I said you have to tell them like, sometimes in different situations there will be times when things don't go your way, but it doesn't affect your value as a person. That doesn't mean you're loved any less by any of this, like by your teacher, by anyone else, and also I think just constantly reminding them that there's always more life to be had even after any disappointment. So like you stop like, yeah, don't look around your shoulder. Like I mean, like your friends may be good at one thing and this particular thing, but like you are, I trust you with so many other things, and I have to be very intentional in telling them what they are worth. And also I think to a certain extent, because all eyes are on you as a teacher, and like you cannot downplay all the things that you do, and how you model life to them is very important. So like if you model security and like confidence and model all of these things, the kids pick a lot of that up from just your mannerisms alone. So I think just being a positive influence as a person, it already wins half the battle for you. So whatever you say after that to them, right, it actually is proven by the way you actually live your life. Because even like some of the kids follow me on social media, so like they need to see that the teacher that they see in school is the same person that is outside of school living his own life as well. So like when I say the things that I say to them in school, I mean it, because I actually model that in my everyday life. And I think that's very important. If you're talking from a position of leadership, I think that's very important to live out the stuff that you say and being very open and transparent about your struggles, and like, and then that goes a long way for kids, and I think people in general as well.
I think that's really incredible what you've said there, and I think this is something, it's not just applied to, just a school, and I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that, because we've sort of talked with my group within this Axe-Sharpening. So this week is week 9, which the week 9 is we've covered quite a number of topics. So for those of you tuning in live, there's one session up on YouTube. I haven't had the time to upload the rest of the video sessions, but it'll be up really soon. And I think really important what you just said, that also some of the things you said, Dave, is correlates to our sharing 2 weeks ago, which we talked about the Golden Circle by Simon Sinek, which he says, in order to inspire people, you need to start with the why first, not the what. You start with the why, you start with the what, and then you start with the why, how, and what, not what, how, and why, because that's the only thing that will be able to, drive you, to inspire, So I think that's really, really important. And comparison is, back into that, what we just discussed, comparison really does kill, and you do see it happen. And that's why I do emphasize in our group when we do the session, that don't compare with one another. And I think I like one of the point is cheer them on, from Craig Groeschel. He just said, cheer them on. Don't, they are running a race. You're running your own race. They are running their own race, So I think what you just shared there really just, it really encourages us. I hope the other team also feel encouraged. And yeah, I think, with that said, I do have one more. Sorry, it's a final one before we wrap up. Any words that any inspiring words or encouragement, Dave, when you like to share with this group? Because as part of the learning growth that I want to put within my own group every Monday. So this session is actually held every Mondays. I do it with the group at 9:30 p.m. Reason is 9:30 p.m. Why on Mondays? There's a reason behind this, why we do it on Mondays, because Mondays is often the thing that we always dread looking forward, right? And we always say, oh, Monday blues. But if you put something like this session, I decided to put it here so that I tell my team, hey, don't worry about Monday blues. We have something to look forward to right in the night. So your day be like the next day, oh, there's a session we can all learn. And so that's why I started these sessions on Monday at 9:30, because it's where most people are a bit, after dinner and everything. So back to the question. Sorry, I drift a little bit. Is there anything, Dave, you like to add on, or any words of encouragement, or that you can share with us for those who are aspiring to do a lot of things, especially those who are graduating? I have a lot of friends that are who are also graduating. Some of them are graduating and looking for jobs, and also because what you did, do you have any words for that?
Thanks, Jesse. Yeah, I think I totally agree with, I think the stuff that you guys doing are amazing. Like, you're talking about the golden circle, starting with the why and then moving up to the how and what. Because as you see, I mean, what you guys see is the stuff that I actually do and actually put out. But as you see, a lot of stuff that you could easily start out doing, and then I've had to kill a lot of the things that I started out doing, because I quickly realized that it didn't resonate with me personally. And the reason being that I just didn't think how it applied to me personally as a person. So there's a lot of thought that needs to be put into why you are doing what you're doing. And for people who are graduating, or anyone else, or anyone who's transitioning to a different area of life, I think the most important question to think about is whatever you set out to do has to resonate with you personally. Definitely, I mean, anything you pursue, there's all this idea of going out of your comfort zone and stretching your boundaries as well to grow as a person. But it wouldn't sit too far away from your own personal interests and your personal passions and desires. So all this in simpler terms, be real with yourself, be honest with yourself, and then and hustle when you get to what you're supposed to do, right? So when you set out to do something that speaks to you personally, then it's time to put in the work, and you don't look back. keep looking forward, keep learning from your experiences, and sometimes you have to fail a little bit before you get to your next project, which will be a success. And yeah, it's just a constant hustle, like never stop, like thinking about why you're doing what you're doing, and just keep going at it.
Right. Anyways, Deef, thank you so much for coming again to come and share your thoughts behind all of this. When I mentioned to the whole group that I was planning out this session and having a live speaker about, and I mentioned about met you in during one of the session at Alpha. Some of my friends were like, "Wow, we're already writing some stuff," and I said, "Okay, this is a good start for the live session thing." And not because of what, but I thought it also aligns with today's theme, Merdeka, anything relates to Merdeka celebration, and Merdeka is about inspirational stories, I believe, in line. And I think your story about how you came up with, you're doing all this for, you may say yourself is an ordinary, really, that shows how humble and humility you are, and how God is using you tremendously, and yeah, really thank you for coming on board and to share some of this with a group of my friends, and hopefully they be encouraged as well. And also for coming for the first live session that I'm actually doing Facebook Live. I'm actually, this is the first time. I'm not used to doing podcasts, but as they say, you gotta step out of your comfort zone. Exactly, spot on what you just said, Dave. So really thank you guys, and those who just tune in to the session. I hope you guys have been encouraged, have been inspired. And for those of you who didn't know much about Divyang Hong behind the scene, I'm pretty sure most of y'all, those HTBB gang or the Alpha people, if you didn't know, now you know, okay? But just to wrap up, and just for a disclaimer, no, I'm not a BBC reporter. If you see my profile picture as Mike Wu had called me the other time when I was doing a Zoom wedding for Charlotte's, when I joined in Charlotte's session, and I got caught like, are you a BBC reporter? So no, I'm not. It's just a picture that I put myself and testing and put somehow put that picture. So yeah, no, I'm not a BBC reporter. But yeah, thank you guys so much. And Dave, thank you very much. Chat with you real soon. And thank you guys for tuning in, and hope to see you guys soon again. Take care and God bless.